evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening to the wonderful people here in Nevis, those in St. Kitts, those who are listening in the wider Caribbean. Good evening to our friends and family in the United States, Canada, and the United Kingdom. Good evening to all who are tuned into On the Mark. My name is Mark Brantley, and welcome to another edition of On the Mark. Let me say how happy I am to be back. It has been several weeks since I have not been here, and therefore let me take the opportunity to thank the Honorable Eric Evelyn and the Honorable Troy Liebert, who filled in for me while I was away and or otherwise unavailable. I am now back, and I'm here to host the show tonight, and hope that the viewers will be viewing on YouTube and or on Facebook, but also listening via Radio 860 on your AM dial. This is, of course, VON Radio, the voice of Nevis and the powerhouse of the Eastern Caribbean. 860 on your AM dial, and we look forward tonight to a good show. We look forward to an excellent conversation. It is good to be back in Nevis, good to be back here with you, our family, right here on the Mark. And so let's get right into it. Good evening to all of those who are listening. Good evening to those especially who might be hospitalized, those who are having some difficulty. My prayers are with you. And we look forward tonight to have a good conversation about various things that are happening here on the island. The good, the bad, and the not so good, the not so bad. I suppose they say that's the indifferent. We are having that discussion because we feel that issues are important to be put on the table. And of course, here on the Mark, we say only the best will do, which is a standard for VON Radio. We say straight talk across the narrows because this is a no-spin room, as, again, it has been made famous by the great Everett Weber Herbert. We don't spin here. Straight bowling. We bounce, we pace, but no spin. The idea really is to have conversation that is uplifting, conversation that is meaningful, and of course we will not always agree. In a democracy, it will be foolish to expect everyone to always agree. But even when we disagree, I urge us not to be disagreeable. And so part of what we try to do on this show is to really chart a path and to demonstrate by doing how we ought to communicate in the public space. And so we urge you, when the phones are open and you must call in, of course. Make your point, make it passionately. On this show, we accept all shades of public opinion. And so you may not agree with me and I may not agree with you, but we must be respectful to each other at all times. And that, I think, is a hallmark of a mature democracy. Let me just give some quick updates. I was away initially. Of course, I was away in the United States. I went there to receive an award from the University of the West Indies, and thereafter I did some promotional work for the island of Nevis. We are seeking aggressively to target the affluent African American community for visitors to the island, and also to target the film community, and we have had some good success in terms of contacts and connections. Some people have already visited, some additional people will visit. In fact, as a consequence of my visit to New York a few weeks ago, we have since had an event that happened in New York just last week, Thursday, an event attended by the Nevis Tourism Authority, and that event was all about black people, African American people who are in senior positions in TV and film. And that event was attended by the NTA. In fact, we sponsored the bar, and we had our own mixologist, quite famous, our mixologist Kendi, who went there, and I'm told she developed a cocktail specifically for that event, and she tended bar there and was the mixologist for the night at a place called Lamani in Manhattan. And I'm told it was well attended, and Nevis got excellent exposure. In fact, just today I was contacted by a well-known celebrity, comedian, who is now, as a consequence of that, looking to be in Nevis in the month of June. And so we're looking very much to target that group. We'll be doing some targeted events because we find that that is a group that had been underserved insofar as Nevis is concerned. And so we welcome them to come, and we'll continue that promotional effort in that regard. And so that was my New York trip quickly. I then came back, and almost immediately I left and went to Miami, where they had the CREF convention, the CREF symposium, if you will. And at that conference, I was able to speak on a panel dealing with renewable energy and to speak to the strides that are being made here on the island of Nevis. In attendance were also the Honorable Congress Maynard from the federal government and the Honorable Dr. Joel Clark. Both were also in attendance. And we also had a very important meeting with the U.S. State Department. The U.S. State Department, as we know, has been very involved with the geothermal project on the island of Nevis, dating back many years. Their interest is still very strong, and we explored areas for funding and areas for cooperation. I then came back, and just a few days later I left again and joined Prime Minister Drew's delegation to London for the coronation of King Charles III and Queen Camilla. While there, we were able to go to the coronation, I think that was at Westminster Abbey, and to go to the coronation concert, which was at Windsor Castle. And after that, we were able to meet with the All-Parliamentary Group, which is a group of parliamentarians in the United Kingdom who have come together to promote the interests of St. Kitts and Nevis and greater understanding and bilateral arrangements between the UK and St. Kitts and Nevis. We had some excellent meetings there. And again, I took the opportunity to engage with others who are interested in Nevis and in development here on the island. I wanted just to lay that out because I recognize that I've been absent. I've been absent from this show. I've been absent from the island. But I'm back now, thank God. And He has brought me back safely to the island. And I can say that I have no intentions of traveling again anytime soon. I am now firmly planted. And so my constituents and the community generally, you haven't been seeing me because I haven't been here. But I'm now back, and you will certainly be seeing more of me and hearing more of me as we, of course, continue to lay out our agenda. Now, on that issue of our agenda, I'm very pleased to advise the general public, for those who do not already know, and I'm checking my phone because I really would want us to have the most accurate information, that the Nevis Island Administration invested some US $229,585. $229,585 US in a brand new mammogram machine. Now, many of us would know that the mammogram is a test that is done, and they say it's the most effective test that could be done to detect breast cancer at an early stage. Breast cancer has been a very difficult cancer to deal with here on the island of Nevis. It has been one of the more prevalent forms of cancer, and I believe all women out there and all families out there should be interested in ensuring that they get screened for breast cancer. What we are doing as a government is understanding our limitations because of the cost of medical care. We have decided that the best approach is preventative. The best approach is prevention. And as a consequence of that, we have been investing more and more in diagnostic tools that can allow us to detect and treat at the earliest stage. We thank Dr. Dwayne Thwaites and his team for the excellent work that they've been doing over the past 20 years, I think, in offering screening for prostate screening. They do an annual screening. And as a consequence, we have seen a dramatic reduction in prostate cancer in our menfolk here on the island of Nevis. I think annually they will screen over 500 males here on the island. Similarly, we would want our women to respond in a positive way to the availability of mammogram services now at the Alexandra Hospital. I'm very pleased that the equipment is state of the art. As I said, we would have invested over $200,000 US in this equipment, and we have priced the service at a very affordable price of $200 EC. Now, for many women, you would of course be referred by your doctor, but for many women, what I would call women in their middle ages, so to speak, I'm told that the test is ordinarily done once every 3 years, and for women who are older, it can be done once per year. Either way, we feel that investing $200 over the course of 3 years in your health, in knowing your status, is critically important. Now, what we have gone even further and have indicated at the Cabinet is that the mammogram services will be free. Let me say that again. The mammogram services will be free at the Alexandra Hospital for the rest of 2023. And so for the rest of this year, you can get access to that service, state-of-the-art equipment, brand new, just installed, at the Alexandra Hospital for free. And so for the remaining months, what is left of May, June, July, August, September, October, November, and December, you can access that service for free at the Alexandra Hospital. The service will be priced at $200 EC as of 1st January 2024. I really want to go on record to thank the Honorable General Nisbet, our new Minister of Health. She's the one who has shepherded this through. We had a very good discussion in the Cabinet today about this service and the purpose for it and why we're doing it. And I want to commend the members of Cabinet for a rigorous conversation. I think at the end of the day, the Honorable Spencer Brand and the Honorable General Nisbet won the day in terms of their arguments. But that is how we do it in Cabinet. It's a collaborative approach. We invite all opinions and we try to come to the best decision. Now, the reasoning and rationale behind having the service for free for the rest of this year is that women, we are urging you to go in and to find out what your status is. Breast cancer, if detected early, like many cancers, can be addressed. Breast cancer does not have to be a death sentence, but you must be interested and take the initiative in relation to your own health. Our health is our wealth. We must not just say so, we must invest in our health. I make the case all the time, and I know sometimes people get tired of hearing me make the case. But many of us spend money frivolously. Music festival is coming. The hair, the nails, the lashes, the outfits, the makeup, all of that is going to be on fleek. I think that's the language I hear my young children using, fleek. Everything is going to be on point. And a VVIP ticket, I'm told, is almost $700 EC. And our people are going to be there and they're going to be having fun. And kudos to all of those who can and all of those who will. My simple point is that whilst you're doing that and investing in those things which are transient, I urge you to take a little money and buy a small health insurance policy for yourself and your family. I urge you to use some of that money and do the occasional checkup to make sure that your health is in order. We can, by simply prioritizing and shifting some of the resources into other things, live better quality lives. Remember, at the end of the fete, that $1,000 outfit and that $500 hairstyle, all of that is gone. It's done. But if you invest in something that can contribute to your health and well-being over time, then that has tremendous value. I am not, let me urge you to say, suggesting that you must not fit and enjoy yourself. That is an important part of life. But I'm urging you to be responsible in what you do. And so, taking care of yourself, getting up and getting a little exercise, ensuring that you try to eat as well as you can in terms of balanced diet, ensuring that you do the things that you know you ought to do, limit your intake of alcohol, try to avoid unprotected sex. All of these are little things that you can do in terms of trying to protect your health and trying to ensure that you live long, healthy lives. We as a government are seeking to do our part. We are, of course, waiting for the National Health Insurance Scheme to come on board. It was something promised by Team Unity. It wasn't delivered. The new Labour administration has promised again, and we are hoping this time that it will be delivered. We are hopeful that we can get this in place. But in the meantime, the Nevis Island administration continues to do its utmost to invest. We have a brand new CCTV, not CCTV, what am I saying? CT scan, that's what I'm looking for, at our hospital. We now have a brand new mammogram available at the hospital. And we are slowly investing over time through partnerships and through our own initiative in order to get the necessary equipment in place to detect, to diagnose, and of course to allow our doctors the tools to better treat our people. But it makes no sense having a mammogram machine unless our women come forward. It makes no sense having free pap smears at our clinics and at our hospital unless our women come forward. And so I'm urging our women folk. And usually when we're doing the prostate screening, we ask our women to encourage their men to come. And so men, please, I'm asking you to help me encourage your women, the women in your lives, your partners, your mother, your daughter, to come forward and do the mammogram at the Alexandria Hospital. And so we're offering that service for the rest of the year for free. Free, free. And that is to allow you to come in to find out what your status is. If you've never done a mammogram before, of course you'll have to be referred by your doctor, but the government is offering this service for free for the rest of this year. And then as of January 1st next year, it will cost the moderate fee of $200. And to put that in context, I'm told that the usual cost for the mammogram is $300. It's done in St. Kitts. Many people have to go over there, and so when you have to travel there, of course you have your boat fee and all the other costs of going to St. Kitts, your taxi, etc., plus the cost of $300 for the mammogram. We're offering it for $200, but we're deferring the cost and starting that charging next year. And again, I want to thank the cabinet. We fashioned this only today, and I'm really pleased that we have something that we can go out and invite our women to come in and to find out their status. The best way, we are told, to detect breast cancer, particularly in its early stages, is through a mammogram. And so we urge you, please. Cost now cannot be the issue because it's free. The only issue is your willingness to come forward and to have the test done, to have the peace of mind, and to know what your status is. And so I'm very pleased with that development, because again, it is demonstrative of a government that cares. It is demonstrative of people who are continually thinking about what we can do to make this island better and to make the lives of our people better, because that's why people elect governments. People elect governments to create the necessary environment where they can prosper and they can live meaningful lives. And so I'm very happy to report that tonight, and to say how pleased I am with the Honorable General Nisbet, our new Minister of Health, who has been rolling out these initiatives. Not a lot of fanfare, because she's not a person given to fanfare, but she has been working hard and delivering for the people of Nevis, and we are really proud that we have been able to invest and to see fruition of this, and to now see the policies that we're going to put in place. We anticipate that the Health Promotion Unit will be doing some promotions on this, and we look forward very much to our women folk responding positively. That's why we've made it free. We want you to rush in, and we want you to know your status. That for us is critically important. Now, today we had an update on our hospital project. I think many people would know that the hospital project has been on pause. It has been on pause because we've been trying to get some quantity surveys done on the interior work. Unfortunately, we would have partnered with a particular professional who has not yet produced, despite the timelines that had been given. And so today we discuss going to alternatives, because naturally we can't have one individual holding up an entire project. And so certainly I would hope that by my press conference, which I try to do monthly, I may have an additional update for you in terms of where we are on that particular project. I will say, however, that any delays on that project has not impacted at all the delivery of healthcare to our people, and we continue to deliver the best healthcare that we are capable of delivering here on the island of Nevis. We continue to invest. In fact, I'm very pleased to say that just today we signed off on the hiring of a radiologist who will now be here with us, of course, with a CT scan and a mammogram, and with equipment such as that. Radiography becomes very important. We have, of course, people who are trained in the technical aspects of this, but we did not have somebody who was trained in the sort of, how should I say, the specialist medical doctor who did this. And so we were relying on somebody from St. Kitts. I can now say that we have identified and signed off on the hiring of somebody to be dedicated here at the Alexandria Hospital. And so again, we're investing in the personnel, we're investing in nurses, we're investing in doctors, and we're ensuring that we have the best quality care available to the people of Nevis. We have also recently invested in some dental chairs for our dental clinics. We had had some difficulty. Those that had been there for many years, and of course you'll get an announcement on that in due course as they're set up. But in Gingerland and in Charlestown, we have brand new furniture, the dental chairs, state-of-the-art, and that investment would have been just over $30,000 US. I want to publicly thank the Republic of China, Taiwan, and our dear friend Ambassador Michael Lin, who continues to be a partner to us. And so we continue to invest and invest and invest in terms of our health care and the provision of our healthcare services. Now I want to also announce, since I'm here, a significant change in policy, and I want to explain it so that the public understands what it is we are seeking to do. The public would be aware that this government has always provided assistance to those persons who are indigent, who are unable to afford, and who require life-saving medical treatment. We have sought to support, in the absence of insurance, health insurance in many cases, and we have done that over the past several years. The program has become more and more onerous on the government and the public purse because more and more people have come forward. We have had therefore to revise our policies and to look carefully at what we're doing. In the last 2 years or so, we had the difficulty of the budgeted amount for that program being exhausted almost by the middle of the year, and so it left us in a very acute difficulty in terms of funding additional persons who came forward in the balance of the year. We have had to look at this and have had to revise to very carefully filter out individuals who ought not to be benefiting from that program. That is, individuals who could afford to take care of their own healthcare needs, and to ensure that what we should do as a government is, as I always say, to ensure that those who are most vulnerable are the ones who get governmental assistance. And so what we have now done is revise the program. We now have a means testing that is being done through the Ministry of Health to ensure that those who are benefiting are those who genuinely need and should be the ones who are benefiting. We have revised in terms of the categories, because hitherto we had persons who came for non-life-threatening surgery, non-life-threatening treatment that they wanted assistance with, and so we have now said, listen, this has to be something that is life-threatening, that has to be done, not optional, but certainly not elective, but certainly critical. And so we have revised as well, and we've also importantly revised the amount. We used to have a maximum amount of US $10,000. We've revised that downwards to EC $10,000. In St. Kitts, we are aware that over there the ministry assistance was limited to 5,000 EC dollars, and here for many years it was 10,000 US dollars being the maximum amount. It doesn't mean that everybody gets 10,000 US. It means that that was the maximum. We've been forced to reduce that to 10,000 EC dollars. Still significant, 4,000 US. But the reason for that again was to try to ensure that more people were able to benefit from the funding that was available. We know that this is a massive reduction. We realize that, but we also hope that we will be able to benefit a broader cross-section of individuals on the island of Nevis. We are to advise, in addition to that, that the program continues, and we will evaluate on a case-by-case basis those who seek to access that program and seek assistance from that program to try to ensure that the program is reaching its targeted audience, and that is those who need critical care but are unable to afford that care. We also continue to provide financial support to those patients who require dialysis treatment. We know that there's been a lot of debate, political debate about dialysis, but we have ignored that noise And we've focused instead on doing what a government should do in a responsible way, which is to provide support to those who require such treatment. And we continue to do that to the best of our financial ability to ensure that our patients who travel to St. Kitts to be dialyzed in St. Kitts get the benefit of some assistance from the government. And so we continue to assist as best as we can, but we continue to go back to ground zero, so to speak, to the starting point, which is prevention is better than cure. Our grandparents used to tell us that an ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure. And $1 spent on prevention is far better than $5 or $100 spent on a cure. Many of the diseases from which we suffer, the non-communicable diseases, hypertension, diabetes, obesity, can be avoided if we are to adjust our lifestyles. Many of them are what they call lifestyle diseases because they're attracted to and prey upon individuals who are lethargic, who are overweight, who don't eat properly, who don't exercise, and who live their lives in a particular way. And so we are urging you again that if you can just tweak your behavior, adjust the way that you go about your life, that it can have tremendous impact on your health, ensuring that you can live longer, healthier lives, and most importantly, it delays the onset of illness so that you're not forced to confront some of these illnesses from such a young age. And so we urge you again, and through the Health Promotion Unit, I like to praise them all the time as one of the best units in government. They do a really good job, that we continue to educate and to assist. And so whether it's the mammogram, whether it's the pap smear, whether it's the prostate screening, you name it, we have been involved in it because it is important for us to prevent. And if we can't prevent, to detect at an early stage, so we can treat and save lives. That is what our healthcare system is designed to do, and that is what we are seeking to do. Let me move on very quickly. It is almost half an hour past. Well, you haven't heard my voice in 5 weeks, so you'll have to put up with me for a few minutes. I'm very pleased to announce that the road construction from Cliff Dwellers all the way over to just past Nisbet Plantation Hotel, that road construction is now complete. All that is left is now for the markings of the road, the signage, and all of those things to be done, and I'm told that that is being done. So the final phases, if you will, the cat eyes and all of that are to go down. They say they give the asphalt a little time to set, and then they do that. I have taken the opportunity to drive on that road, and I want to thank Surrey Paving. They have been a partner with us over the years. Whenever our Public Works Department is busy, we have turned to Surrey Paving, and they have done good work, and we thank them for the work that they've done on that particular road. I invite Nivisions to use the road, to go and see for themselves. One of the important things that we've done there is that we have fixed the drainage issues, particularly in the Wally area. We have done another important thing, is that the roadway that went from Wally over to Cuttalong Path, we have cut down the hill there in order to make that safer. It used to be a hill that was a blind road, if you will. You couldn't see oncoming traffic, and so we've done that to alleviate that particular problem. The carriageway, I think, is excellent quality, and we urge our drivers to use it responsibly. I smiled tonight because the Honorable Alexis Jeffers, who was the representative for St. James, used to almost every cabinet agitate for that road to be done. And I want to give him credit tonight, because he, more than any other, stood up time and time again and advocated for that road to be done. Kudos to the Honorable Alexis Jeffers. The Honorable Spencer Brand, who has led the Ministry of Works with distinction He and his team must be applauded for the excellent work that they've delivered on that road and on so many other infrastructural projects here on the island of Nevis. When we hear the refrain, although I confess I have not heard it lately, that nothing is happening on Nevis, and we look at the reality on the ground, we understand that you can fool some of the people some of the time, but you can't fool all of the people all of the time. I well remember, I have a good friend from the Newcastle area, and he is the best videographer in Nevis. He used to go around, I don't know what kind of equipment he's using, but it must be sophisticated equipment, because he used to produce videos of every back road in Nevis and every pothole in Nevis. I remember seeing a video that he produced of that same road, and I'm asking him tonight, and if he's not listening, I ask somebody to tell him go and do a video for me of the new road and put up that too, because that is important. It is not just about talking about what the problems are. It's about a government that sees the problems, that plans and then executes the solutions. And now we have a high quality island main road. From any point of this island you go around, the road is in good shape. And I want to thank all who contributed to this, and to thank Reparations for the excellent work that they've done. We have only today signed off on another important project, which is the bypass road. We know that people have been complaining. It is one of the most widely used roads, and that road has not been rehabilitated now for the past 20 years or so. And so it is time to rehabilitate that road, going from the corner here at Delta gas station by the roundabout all the way up to, well, all the way around and down to Pinnes, where that intersection with the Nevis Island Main Road. And so we hope to undertake that particular project in short order, and to say to our people that we understand the many people who are agitating, as they should, saying that the roads needs to be done, the roads in their village. Some are saying the road outside their gate. We understand all that, and we're asking you to be patient with us. With limited resources, we're trying to prioritize the roads that are most used, the roads that see the majority of the traffic, and then we try to get into the villages and into the smaller communities and provide some relief. It is not that we are not hearing you. It is not that we are not paying attention to you. It is simply sometimes a question of limited resources and where do we spend that money to have the best impact. And so we look forward very much to that continued upgrade of the infrastructure here on the island of Nevis. Incidentally, I mentioned that I was in New York. On the way back from London, we had to travel through New York to get back. Flights were very difficult to find. And so we had to overnight. Well, I say overnight, it was just a few hours in New York before we took the flight to Miami and then home. I decided to take a hotel close to the airport just to get a few hours sleep. And as the taxi took me from JFK to that hotel, I marveled, because it was a miracle that the taxi wheels didn't fall off. The number of potholes that we struck from JFK to that hotel, I think it was a Courtyard Marriott or something, which was not too far away. Every time I straightened up, bam, we fell in another pothole. And we were driving there, and I felt I was driving on I don't know what kind of road, because the car was shaking, and I said, my goodness, a pregnant woman wouldn't survive this. She would go into labor right away. And I reflected, even as I took that drive, this is New York City. The city that never sleeps, and the richest country in the world, the richest country that man has ever known, the United States of America. And I said, what? New York got pothole? New York has roads that bouncy like this? And sometimes I wonder, when I hear the noise that some here in Nevis are making, little Nevis, a dot, a speck. And we look at what we have been able to do here for our people, and you hear the constant cacophony of sound and fury of people who complain, and they see a pothole and they act special, very special, They act as if a pothole is unheard of anywhere in the world. We had some heavy rains, I remember. And some were going around filming every pothole they could find. Well, when the rains come and the rains are heavy and water settles, we understand that it will do some damage to the roadways. That is not rocket science. But sometimes our people get so preoccupied with the noise that they ignore the substance. And so I was marveling at the fact that I fell in some potholes from JFK. And that the ride was bumpy and my teeth were going click, 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 click. I marveled because I said, well, this can't be big America. This can't be big America. Because the quality of our roads here, the quality of the infrastructure here is second to none. And we continue to improve and improve and improve. And we will continue to spend money to improve that infrastructure so that our people can have the best quality of life. I'm told, since I've been back, that the facility, reception facility at the water taxi pier is proceeding apace. We hope to have that finished shortly. We hope also to start and have completed the parking area at Wally, and that will be the finishing touch, if you will, of that entire complex that we would have created there. So that's important for us as we continue to build out our infrastructure. They say Rome was not built in a day, and Nevis equally will not be built in a day. But I believe that fair-minded individuals will look and say, listen, we are making not just incremental steps, we are making some huge strides as we build out that infrastructure. Let me talk very quickly about the issue of water rationing. We have had, unfortunately, to go to a situation of water rationing because our experts are telling us that our wells are not recharging at the rate that we would like. That, I think, is a very dangerous sign for us, and it's something that we as a government are grappling with, because it means we're extracting water at too rapid a rate from our aquifers, not giving the aquifer sufficient time to recharge. And yes, through the grace of God, we've had some rain, but our bulk of our water is still supplied through our wells. We have therefore decided that we have no choice. We must embark on the drilling of some new wells. We had invested with a company called Bead some years ago. We paid them a substantial down payment to drill some new wells. Bead did not deliver. And so we are hoping now that we can find alternatives to see how we can drill some new wells, particularly as we get ready for the geothermal project, which will require a substantial amount of water during the drilling phase. And so we are apologetic, and I want to use this rostrum to apologize to the people who have been inconvenienced, but we have introduced the rationing of water. We have said from 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. in certain areas. The water department has been putting out their notices. We are discussing now whether it's possible to move that from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m., but that is a decision that the experts will take. But we are asking you to bear with us. We are trying to resolve these issues and to solve this problem, but as part of that, we're also asking that you conserve water, that you don't use the water to wash your car or to water your lawn, but you try to conserve water as much as possible. And for those who can harvest water, that is rainwater, that you do so as well. So those with their cisterns, etc., that you do that, and that you can use your cistern when, of course, we are having a difficulty to provide some relief. We are also being impacted by the fact that the Four Seasons Resort, which at this time of year normally would be slowing down, is showing no signs of slowing down just yet. Just yesterday I was told that their occupancy was well over 70%, which in May is unheard of. And I'm told that they have pretty significant business up until July. What that means is that, of course, that resort, which is a large off-taker of water, that they continue to consume a considerable amount of water as well. And so we are having to balance that as we go into this period of dry season, if you will, that we have been experiencing lately, that we have to balance that in terms of the demand, which is higher than usual because of the great success that the island has been seeing this year in terms of our tourism. And so I'm asking for your understanding, I'm asking for your patience. The government is trying to do its very best, and I want to commend, of course, the management and staff of the Water Department, and again the leadership of the Honorable Spencer Brand, who has been doing an excellent job, not only in providing but also in updating the public in terms of what is happening. Let me move very quickly to a matter that I had hoped not to have to discuss again, but a matter that has arisen again because I recently received a letter from the Honorable Dr. Janice Daniel Hodge, the leader of the NRP. And Dr. Hodge, I think, in her letter made some very unfortunate remarks and insinuations, accusations as I would call them. Because one of the things that stuck out or jumped out at me was she suggested that I was trying to suppress women. And that really upset me, because I think this CCM administration, the CCM party, and the CCM in government over the years has demonstrated that we see no difference between men and women. We promote men and women equally. We provide equal opportunity for our men folk and for our women folk. And so I was very distressed to see that she would use a situation to try to make that suggestion and that attack. And why? Because I suppose she's a woman, so she makes that attack. But making it doesn't make it so. And so I want to take a few minutes to explain the situation again to the public, and you will be the judges. When I became Premier in 2017, I decided as Premier, as part of our good governance agenda, to do something that had never been done in the history of Nevis. I decided, with the assistance of the Cabinet, that we will make a fully funded, fully staffed, fully equipped office available to the leader of the opposition. That was the decision that we took. As it turned out, in the election of 2017, the CCM won 4 of the 5 seats. The NRP only managed 1 seat, the Honorable Joseph Parry. Now, under the Constitution, it says that the person to be appointed leader of the opposition must have the support of at least one other elected member. Well, Mr. Parry had nobody with him. He was the sole elected member from the NRP. And therefore it follows that he had no one who could support him to be leader of the opposition. And so we had no constitutionally appointed leader of the opposition from 2017. Notwithstanding that, the Cabinet met and the Cabinet said, we will extend the courtesy of that office to the Honorable Joseph Parry. He is not leader of the opposition. He is not qualified to be appointed leader of the opposition under the Constitution because he has no other member to support him. However, he is the sole representative of the opposition, and we will extend the courtesy of a fully funded, fully staffed, fully equipped office to him. Mr. Parry went into that office. When Mr. Parry decided to quit politics midterm, and there was a by-election and the Honorable Cleon Stapleton Simmons won that by-election in St. Thomas's, the Honorable Cleon Simmons continued to occupy that office for the opposition. There was no problem. There was no noise. There was no difficulty. This was a manifestation of my government's commitment to the good governance agenda. The last time I saw her, the Honorable Cleon Stapleton Simmons was female. She is a woman. And she had the benefit of that office throughout the tenure that she was there as a representative of the people of St. Thomas's during my first term as Premier. We had an election in December of 2022. And in that election, the CCM won the government with 3 seats and the NRP won 2 seats. The NRP now has a leader, Dr. Janice Daniel Hodge, who the last time I saw also is a woman. And so there are 2 ladies, Dr. Janice Daniel Hodge and Cleon Stapleton Simmons, who were elected, one in St. James and one in St. Thomas's. Now we all know, ladies and gentlemen, what has happened. The two ladies have not got along. The situation has deteriorated, and the result of that chaos has been that the Honorable Cleon Stapleton Simmons was first suspended from NRP and now has been fired from NRP altogether. So she, as the representative of the people of St. Thomas's, has been fired from the NRP. So she's an independent member of the opposition. Now, notwithstanding the election of December of 2022, the CCM having been returned to office, we continued with our same posture as part of our good governance agenda to say that there should be an office for the leader of the opposition. Remember, that is why the office was set up all along. And on this occasion, the NRP, having won 2 seats, St. Thomas's and St. James, had the opportunity and the constitutional authority to have either Janice Daniel Hodge or Cleon Stapleton Simmons appointed leader of the opposition, and that office therefore would have been the office for the leader of the opposition. Instead, both of them ended up in confusion, and what I have described as a colossal failure of leadership, that confusion burst into the public sphere, everybody cussing everybody. The result was that at the end, Cleon Stapleton Simmons did not support Janice Daniel Hodge to be leader of the opposition. They were not able to appoint a senator, because you can't appoint a senator unless a leader of the opposition is there. And now the NRP has taken the unprecedented step of kicking out Cleon altogether. So Cleon is now out of NRP, and so NRP won 2 seats in December 2022 and then immediately lost one of the seats. So they win 2, lose 1. They're back to 1 seat. That's what they had from 2017. And so Janice Daniel Hodge, the Honorable Dr. Janice Daniel Hodge, as leader of the NRP, stands alone. And Cleon Stapleton Simmons, as an independent opposition member representing the people of St. Thomas's, stands alone. Now, because, remember the history I gave you, because Cleon Stapleton Simmons had had access and control of that office since she was the sole member of the opposition when she won the by-election and took over in St. Thomas's from the Honorable Joseph Parry, she continued in the office. We did not make any moves because we thought that a responsible NRP, a responsible opposition, would have met and settled their business and advised the government what the position was, who's the leader of the opposition, who's the senator. Those were matters for them to do. Instead of doing what they're supposed to do, they end up in confusion. That confusion was not caused by us. It was not in any way assisted or facilitated or caused by anything that the CCM or the government did. That confusion was of their own making. We are now presented with a scenario, and you be the judge, where Janice Daniel Hodge is writing to the government and telling the government that she should have access to that office. And naturally, Cleon Stapleton Simmons is also occupying and saying, well, listen, I have always been here and I should have access to the office. Well, how is that going to work? The two are not getting along. It has deteriorated to the point where Cleon has been kicked out of the party. So how are we going to have one office for NRP and the same office for the independent member of the opposition? And so we took the only decision I think we could have taken. We said, in light of all this confusion and you all can't agree, and instead of this government, this decent government getting caught up in your melee, we're going to close the office. When the NRP gets its house in order, when the opposition gets its house in order, then we could have a conversation. But we did not think it right to have competing, contesting demands on the government for the use and control of that office. Janice wants a key. Cleon says she wants a key. Well, who's going to control it? And so what had happened was our good intentions in relation to that office had now created tremendous difficulty because of their confusion. So we wrote to indicate that the office will be closed as of the end of April. And that we were forced to that decision. So when I saw another letter come now from Dr. Janice Daniel Hodge to accuse me and the government of suppressing women by closing the office, as if to suggest that we are closing the office somehow because she's a woman. And I'm saying, well, how could you ignore your own part in this confusion? You're the leader of NRP. You could not solve a problem that evolved and erupted inside the NRP. You couldn't solve the problem. You didn't have the leadership skills to solve the problem. We now as a government are responding to that chaos and saying, well, what do? We can't open one office for Janice and one office for Cleon. There's to be one office for the leader of the opposition. And absent a leader of the opposition, as we extended the courtesy to the Honorable Joseph Parry, we make the office available to the opposition. Well, who's the opposition? Ask yourself that question. Who is the opposition? Because instead of one opposition in Nevis, we now have two. We have Dr. Janice Daniel Hodge, opposition 1. We have Cleon Stapleton Simmons, opposition 2. Well, who's supposed to get the office? Dr. Janice Daniel Hodge has no greater claim to the office than Cleon Stapleton Simmons. And Cleon Stapleton Simmons has no greater claim to the office than Dr. Janice Daniel Hodge. Both of them represent one constituency. One represents St. James, one represents St. Thomas. What is the government supposed to do? The confusion is not ours. The confusion is theirs. They're the one who created the situation. And so we said, listen, when you all get your house in order, let us know. Until then, we're not going to waste the taxpayers' money. People elect us to take care. And in taking care and being prudent and sensible, we are going to close that office until such time. And that's what we did. That's what we advised. I don't see how that is any attempt on the part of the government to suppress women or to be anti-democratic. I don't see. Then she makes the outlandish claim in her letter. She says, oh, amounts were budgeted for this office and the cabinet therefore cannot unilaterally change that because amounts were budgeted. And I said, again, I don't know who's advising Dr. Janice Daniel Hodge, the Honorable Dr. Janice Daniel Hodge, but whoever's advising her, she needs to fire all of them. I could understand that she does not know because she just reached. But those who are around her who should know, she should get rid of all of them because she should know that a budget is what it is. You pass a budget, you say these are our plans and our projections. They may not all be realized. Sometimes your budget, you say you're going to do a road, you're going to do whatever. The funding doesn't materialize. That doesn't happen. And so notwithstanding we budgeted for an office for the opposition, if you as a leader of NRP and Cleon Stapleton Simmons, the Honorable Cleon Stapleton Simmons, cannot decide amongst yourselves how you will conduct opposition affairs, you can't then blame the government. So what are we going to do? So Janice, you could use the office at day and Cleon, you use it at night? Is that what we're supposed to do? So you can't blame us because the train has gone off the tracks because of you. Your actions, your inability as a leader to bring your team together and to do what is necessary, to compromise if that is what is necessary, but to do what is necessary to ensure that we have the necessary constitutional rectitude to move forward. And listen to me, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to make a point here. This thing has consequences, you know. I am committed to a good governance agenda. It is under my administration that we operationalize integrity in public life. But hear what? The Integrity Commission has 3 members. 1 member appointed on the advice of the Premier. one member appointed by the Deputy Governor General in her own deliberate judgment. And the third member, you know who the third member is to be? Somebody appointed on the advice of the leader of the opposition. You see how this thing now gets sticky? We have an integrity commission in place now. It's headed by Mr. Ricardo Keynes. He was the appointee of the Governor General the Deputy Governor General in her own deliberate judgment. We have Mr. Sidney Newton. He is the appointee on the advice of the Premier. And we had Mr. Alfred Tyrrell, who was appointed on the advice of Mr. Joseph Parry, who, even though he was not leader of the opposition, was the sole elected representative in the opposition. And so we thought that that was a compromise that could be made. Now guess what? The commission's tenure is up in a few weeks. Who is going to give the advice for the member of the commission to be put there by the opposition? Cleon gonna say who she is gonna put there, or Janice is gonna say who she gonna put there? You see why I'm saying these things? Because this foolishness that has happened inside the NRP, and that's the only word I can use to describe it. A lot of us have looked on, and we have looked on in shock and awe. And the bloodletting and the cussing each other and the confusion and the chaos that has resulted. I want you now to understand how that is affecting the good governance agenda in the island of Nevis. Because what it will mean is that there will be no member to the Integrity Commission representing the opposition. Because Dr. Janice Daniel Hodge cannot appoint a member. She's not the leader of the opposition. Cleon Stapleton Simmons cannot appoint a member. She's not leader of the opposition. Dr. Janice Daniel Hodge cannot appoint a member. She's not the sole opposition member. And Cleon Stapleton Simmons cannot appoint a member. She's not the sole opposition member. You see how now the confusion? So who's going to write the letter to the GG to advise the GG who to be appointed? Janice can't do it. Cleon can't do it. And they can't do it because the two of them are at war. And I say these things because the Constitution, the law, expects us to act responsibly. We are expected to conduct ourselves in a particular way. And when people go out and they vote for you in order for you to represent them, but also for you to conduct yourself within the norms that are expected of you. We have seen none of that from the NRP. None. And someone said to me, and I think when I reflect in my quiet moments, you imagine what chaos Nevis would have been in had that result in December last year gone differently and the NRP was elected into office. Imagine what chaos. Because it is quite clear from what has since happened that Dr. Janice Daniel Hodge couldn't tell her members anything. So when she said to Patricia Bartlett, Dr. Bartlett, I'm going to put you in charge of the veterinary office and put you in charge of agriculture, and Pat said, not me not doing that. I want tourism. When she said to J.D. Keynes, you I will give information and tourism, and not me, I don't want that, I want to be Minister of Finance. Cleon Stapleton, I'm going to give you education, I'm going to give you health care. No, not me. I must be Minister of Infrastructure and Works. You realize the chaos that this little island would have been in? You see, a lot of people are going around, you know. Change, we need change. I hope now, because this is as if God took us to the brink and allowed us to look over into the abyss. And then we start now to pedal back and say, Lord, I did not know. The Lord gave you a glimpse. He said, look over there, see the chaos and the confusion that this island here would have been in. And then you have the audacity and temerity to write to me, to say to me that I am trying to suppress women and I am undemocratic because I was forced, and the cabinet was forced to take a decision created from your confusion. That is really what happened. A decision forced upon us, created by your confusion and lack of leadership. You can't say that we are suppressing women or undemocratic because we have taken the only decision available to us. And so I just want to make that pellucid. And to say to the Honorable Dr. Janice Daniel Hodge that I am not seeking to suppress women. I've always promoted women. I said, much chatter as there's been, first elected female in Nevis was on a CCM ticket. Went into the NIA. It was the Honorable Jean Harris, the great Jean Harris. When we won in 2013, having been out in the wilderness for 5 years and 18 null and void months, the Honorable Vance Amory of blessed memory reached out and brought in Hazel Brandy Williams as a junior minister. Last I saw her, she was female too. And then when I took over and became Premier in 2017, I persisted with the Honorable Hazel Brandy Williams. Our legal advisor is female. Hazel Brandy is female. And then when in December 2022 the people re-elected the CCM, we reached out and we brought in the Honorable Janelle Nisbet. So it really rankles for me when there's a suggestion that somehow we are trying to suppress women, when we are responding to chaos, crisis and confusion created by the NRP for the NRP, but which has implications beyond the NRP for the island of Nevis. And I just mentioned, for example, the Integrity Commission. How is that going to work now? Do we disband it now because Cleon and Janice can't get along? How is that going to work? And I want people now to start to really understand the implications of this confusion and this foolishness, to understand it. And I am not in any position to tell NRP what to do. What they do is their business. But I'm interested in Nevis. And I know when you're interested in Nevis and you're interested in serving the people of Nevis, their needs must be put ahead of your own. And sometimes you have to suppress yourself. It's like sometime in a family, if you don't have enough food, you must make sure your children eat, even if you go hungry. And when you're in a leadership position, and you hear what they call it, servant leadership, you're the chief servant, you must ensure that your ambitions, your sense of power, your naked ambition is suppressed in support of the people that elected you. And you must do what is right for them. And that is what is lacking here. So I answered, I don't know, because the last time we had an exchange of correspondence, the Honorable Dr. Janice Daniel Hodge thought it best to give it to the CFBC fellow, and he put it all over social media. So I don't know if she's going to put these letters on social media as well. That's a matter for her. But I will speak when necessary to matters which I think rise to a level that they need to be discussed, and that the public needs to understand what is going on. Because, as I said, it is unfair and unwarranted to attack this government as being undemocratic or suppressing women, because the women in the opposition refuse to do what is expected of them. Don't blame me for your shortcomings. That's not how it works. Ladies and gentlemen, it's 5 past the hour, and I'm going to open the lines now and take some calls at 869-469-1616 and 869-469-1700. Those are the numbers to call if you want to be a part of the show this evening. And we go directly to the phones and say, good evening, you're on the mark. Hello?
Good evening, Miss Sheriff.
Good evening to you, my dear. How are you?
I'm glad you come back. I missed you. Too much story we're going to do right now.
Yes, yeah, first.
Verse 1 and 2.
Yes.
My brethren, be not many masters, knowing that we shall receive the greater condemnation. For in many things we offended all. If any man offended not in the word, the same is a perfect man, and able also to bridle the whole body. I was wondering what's going on with the case with Mr. Brown.
Yes.
My sheriff, I made to understand on the radio how you went to England for King Charles and you did not get the invitement to go. So I want you to know that's what they say. You're going up there and you're not getting invited.
All right.
So work out that. Tell him where you say you invite, you're not fast, make at them.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I don't know if I need to put the invitation in the public domain. I don't understand why people continue to engage in just foolish chatter. While I was in England, I saw a news story that the Honorable Jeffrey Handley, Dr. Jeffrey Handley, Deputy Prime Minister of the Federation, had led a delegation to Taiwan, and that he was in Taiwan with his delegation. And a friend of mine sent me a photo and said, well, how you didn't tell me you're going to Taiwan? And I said, Taiwan? They said, yes. And in that photo, I was very prominently displayed in the lineup there with Prime Minister Drew, Dr. Jeffrey Handley, and others, and said to be the delegation that had landed in Taiwan. And I believe at the time I was en route from England to New York to try to make my way home. So I said that to say, caller, that right now, anybody with a phone and mischief on their mind can create whatever they can create and put it on social media and say whatever they want to say. Because I don't know anybody in their right mind who take up themselves, travel all the way to England to attend a function that they were not invited to. First of all, how would they get into the function? You think you just wash your foot and come? That's the way it works? How do you get into the function? So I don't even know why people continue to waste time and waste energy. I saw this organization, the American Foundation for the University of the West Indies, decided in their wisdom to give me an award. And I saw some ferocious attacks on that organization. All manner of things being said about them. How I bite and they're not a real organization, they're not legitimate. I keep telling people, learn to ignore. If you see a man out there is getting an award, an accolade, somebody saying well done, and you don't like the man, don't say nothing, just keep walking. Pretend you not see, you not hear. But everything that happens, they have to grab at and they have to comment on and they have to all kind of foolishness. Right? All kinds of foolishness. And you wonder why. Why waste so much energy? Some of them, if they'd invested that level of energy in developing themselves, they wouldn't be around here knocking dog today. They would have had something to show for their lives. What they've done, what they've accomplished, who they've helped, what service they've given. Instead of that, just rah, 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 all day, all night, making up story after story, trying to convince somebody. We have so many beautiful fiction writers here. People who I think they should get some prize for fiction because that's what they do. Let's go back to the phones. 10 minutes past. Good evening, you're on the mark. Caller, please call back 869-469-1616, 869-469-1700. Now, while I wait for the phones, okay, let me take this call. Good evening, you're on the mark.
Mark?
Yes, you're on the mark. Go ahead.
Good evening to you, sir. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Good. Mark, I have a concern. I went on vacation the other day and I chose to go to Africa. And in every country that I went to in Africa, we had, it was a group of us, we had some real issues because the country of St. Kitts and Nevis is not known. And we couldn't go a lot of the places we wanted to go because we did not have visas. Now, I know that while you were Minister of Foreign Affairs, you would have made a lot of international relations and relationships with a lot of countries. What's the possibility or well, question number one, why not Africa? Why is it that Africa is not known, that we are not known to Africa? And what's the difficulty in getting some kind of relation with Africa? Because that is where I think that people are, from what I saw, that's where people are now going for vacation.
Okay. Well, thank you for your call. As you know, Africa, I believe, is some 54 countries. I don't know which countries you went to, but I don't think it's fair to say that we don't have relations. We do have relations, but relations are not done with the African continent. They're done with the countries in Africa. Just as relations aren't done with the European continent, they're done with countries in Europe. And so you'll have to go from country to country to country. Now, I pulled up here on my phone that during my tenure as foreign minister, we would have entered into diplomatic relations with Kenya, the Gambia, Senegal, Ethiopia, Mozambique, Gabon, Eswatini, Togo, Sao Tome and Principe, Rwanda, Djibouti, Cameroon, Egypt, Burkina Faso, Zimbabwe, Sudan, Uganda, and Benin. I didn't count, but that's a substantial number of countries. And then we would have done visa waiver arrangements with Sierra Leone, Kenya, Zambia, Rwanda, the Gambia, Ghana, but Ghana was only for diplomatic and official passports, Togo, Eswatini, Burkina Faso, Gabon, Sao Tome and Principe, Sudan, and Benin. So if your travels took you to any of the countries that I would have mentioned, they should have been aware of you and St. Kitts and Nevis. And in fact, if your travels took you to Sierra Leone, Kenya, Zambia, Rwanda, the Gambia, Togo, Eswatini, Burkina Faso, Gabon, Sao Tome and Principe, Sudan, or Benin, you should have been able to access without a visa. Now, the question of whether countries are known or not known. We are a member of the United Nations. We have embassies, a permanent mission in New York. We have embassies in Washington, D.C. We have a high commission in Canada. We have a high commission in London. We have an embassy in Abu Dhabi, in Dubai. We have an embassy in Cuba. So I am not certain, caller, why you would say people don't know you. If they don't know you, in terms of knowing of St. Kitts and Nevis, then it is not entirely, I think, our fault that people don't know of us, because we're there, we exist, we engage. We know of them because we have educated ourselves as to what the countries of the world are, and certainly it is for them to also know of us. I take your point, the bigger point, that people are now rediscovering, or in some cases discovering for the first time, Africa. And that is why we had a concerted push when I was leading that ministry to get closer to Africa. I believe that that is a push now that will continue, and I say that because after the first Africa CARICOM summit, we have seen now some momentum. Afro-Exim Bank, for example, is looking to set up in the region, and we're seeing greater dialogue and engagement, and countries like Barbados have jumped out, opened embassies, etc. over there. We have appointed ambassadors to, I think, to Kenya and to Ghana, if memory serves, and I believe to South Africa. So the momentum was there. The groundwork had been laid. It's merely for us now to continue that work to ensure that we have that network of visa waivers around the region and specifically on the African continent. But I'm happy that you mentioned your own travels, because when I was touting the fact that we were finalizing a lot of these visa arrangements, a lot of people ridiculed me. And they said, nobody wants to go to them place that what visa you're talking about. But you see, caller, you have gone. And you would now have realized the difficulty in travel without the necessary visa. What I will say to those who want to visit any country, including countries in Africa, that prior to you making your plans, you identify those countries that you require a visa for. And if necessary, of course, apply for your visa in advance, just as you would do if you're going to America or if you're going anywhere else that requires a visa. So to me, it's what we have to do. until such time as we can continue and get to a point where all of Africa is available to us visa-free. That was my aim. Of course, I'm no longer there, and so it will be a matter for the new government and the new foreign minister to continue that path and that trajectory in which we are on. Let's go back to the phones and take some more calls. Good evening, you're on the mark.
Mark.
Yes.
It's me again. You keep mentioning Kenya. Kenya is one of the countries I went to when I was denied entry.
Well, I don't know why you were denied entry. We finalized visa-free arrangements with Kenya. I don't have the year, but that was done and that was finalized. So if you could not get into Kenya, it means that there's some deficiency on the part of Kenya in relation to that. And that's a matter that should be reported to Foreign Affairs here so that they can make the necessary representation.
Well, I need to know where to address that, because they pulled us out of the line. We were in the line forever, and then to look for countries and to where we are. I mean, we went the same thing. We went to Botswana, but absolutely nobody knows about St. Kitts Nevis. And I'm going like, really?
Well, call again. I mean, I can't answer that question for you. If somebody doesn't know about you, then that is not a reflection on you. That's a reflection on them. You know about Botswana, you end up in Botswana, so why nobody in Botswana know about St. Kitts and Nevis? That is not my responsibility that they don't know, that they've not educated themselves. The fact that you reached Botswana means that you have educated yourself, you know you need to go to Botswana. But Botswana, we require a visa to go to Botswana as far as I know. But you do not require a visa for Kenya. So if that is the case that you went to Kenya, I would suggest that you write to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs here and you advise them that you had this difficulty so that they can make representation to the Kenyan government about that situation. But I remember that I was the one who signed on the margins of the United Nations with the then foreign minister. I think her name was Amina, if memory serves, Amina Mohammed. On the margins at the UN, I signed visa waiver with Kenya. At the time, Uhuru Kenyatta was the president, and I had met Uhuru Kenyatta in Malta, sat at breakfast with him and asked him about it, and he delivered. So if you had that difficulty, caller, please report it to Foreign Affairs and let them sort that out. But I'm only reporting to you what I know to be factual, because I said, coincidentally, I have it here on my phone, the list of countries, and I was able to read them out for you. We have about 40 minutes left. We're taking your calls. 869-469-1616 and 869-469-1700. Caller, let me just go back to the point that I was trying to make, however, to say that there's also an onus on you as a traveler, as a tourist, wherever you're going to go. You must check before you go that you have the necessary documentation. If you require a visa, that you have that visa. You know you can't just show up at somebody's doorstep and tell them, here I am. You must have the necessary documentation to go. And I know in Africa it is particularly difficult because sometimes you have to send your passport all the way to England to get that. And that is why, again, we were on this path of diplomatic relations 1 and visa waiver 2 in order to get us there. And I've listed the countries that I was responsible for. When I say I was responsible, let me refrain that my team, under my leadership, we were responsible for these countries then. There were, of course, countries before, and I'm hopeful that there will be countries after. So my hope would be that the next time you decide to travel through Africa, you check in advance, of course, which countries you need a visa for, which you don't, and you make sure you get your paperwork in order. But over time, I'm hopeful that the people of St. Kitts and Nevis will be able to travel to Africa without a visa requirement at all. That is my hope and my expectation. It is 20 minutes past the hour of 9 o'clock. I'm taking your calls. 869-469-1616, 869-469-1700. While you're waiting for the phones to ring, seems people are reticent this evening to call. Let me just take you to some information which I think is of critical importance. And that information has to do with the annual walkathon, the Nevis Renal Society. They're having their annual walkathon on Saturday the 27th of May, starting at 6 a.m. The route is from the Eva Wilkin Gap in Clegot to the Fruit Orchard at Indian Castle. That's a long walk. From Clegot to Indian Castle. It's a long walk. Healthy refreshments will be served. They're asking for a contribution of $50. Contact any member of the society to register and get your shirt. So let's go and walk on the 27th of May with the Renal Society. They do excellent work. My dear friend would normally call in and advertise, but she's not calling in yet. I expect closer she'll call in. But I'm doing some advertising for them Saturday, 27th of May at 6 a.m. and we hope to go out and be a part of that. Let me take this call and then I come back to discuss a critical matter. Good evening, you're on the mark. Hello?
Hi, good evening. Hi.
Good evening, you're on the mark.
Yeah, let me just ask you, if you're living in the U.S. and you have a green card, you want to travel to your country, do you need a visa?
To travel to which country?
To travel to St. Kitts and Nevis, do you need a visa from the U.S. if you have a green card?
Do you need a visa from St. Kitts and Nevis? I'm not understanding the question.
From the U.S. to travel to St. Kitts.
No, but if you have a green card, why would you need a visa from the U.S.?
I'm a Jamaican descendant.
Huh?
I'm a Jamaican descendant.
You're Jamaican?
Yeah.
But you have a green card from the U.S.?
Yeah.
You do not need a visa to come to St. Kitts and Nevis. As a Jamaican, you are able to travel to St. Kitts and Nevis under the CARICOM arrangements. Caller, are you there?
Yeah, I'm still there.
Okay. So, are you satisfied with the answer? I'm not sure I've answered your question. Hello?
I'm a Jamaican.
Okay. We understand that you're Jamaican. As a Jamaican, you do not require a visa to visit St. Kitts and Nevis.
Okay.
Because St. Kitts and Nevis is part of CARICOM. Like Jamaica, there's freedom of movement.
Okay.
Okay?
You're welcome.
All right. Thank you very much. We have about 35 minutes. We're taking your calls. While we wait for the phones to ring, let me just take you here to a very important development. And I want to give kudos to the Honorable Troy Liburd, Minister of Education, and his team, his PS, his PEO, and the entire team there. They're having STEM Week 2023. STEM. STEM means science, technology, engineering, and math. I'm hopeful that I got that right. STEM. And from the 22nd of May to the 26th of May, they're having a whole week of activities. Monday, 22nd May, STEM Week launch. Then they have Tuesday, 23rd May, a Math Infusion Day. All lessons planned for this day will be infused with mathematics to help students recognize how math is connected to all areas of learning. Wednesday, 24th May, STEM Challenge at the MGR Park, 9:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. Live stream via NTV. A competition designed for students to apply knowledge and skills gained in STEM subjects to perform given performance tasks. Friday the 25th, STEM Expo at the MGR Park, grand exposition where students will showcase STEM projects created during the school year. Now, this is a critically important development because we have had a scarcity of individuals involved in science, technology, engineering, and math. We've had a scarcity of students stepping up to study. In fact, we've had a real problem even finding teachers for science and technologies and math. And so I would really want to applaud the Ministry of Education for this initiative and to applaud the assistance from the Republic of China, Taiwan, who has stepped up yet again to partner with the people of Nevis in relation to delivering on these types of initiatives for our young people. STEM is critically important, and this is an effort to advance science and technology, engineering and math in our schools, and to allow our young people to develop a love for these subjects. Since I was a boy in school, and that's a long time ago, you always had people saying, oh, math's hard. In fact, there was a Calypsonian in Singh, he said math's too hard, I think was his name. So we always say math's hard, oh, science hard, physics and chemistry, them things hard, biology. And as a result, a lot of our people shied away. And we have seen now the consequences of that, in that we have fallen badly behind in those subject areas. So I really think that this is important. This STEM week, which, as I said, starts on Monday the 22nd and culminates on May 26th. And we are urging our people to go out to the Malcolm Gishard Recreational Park on the days when they have the STEM Challenge and the STEM Expo to support our young people. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to On the Mark. And again, we're inviting your calls at 869-469-1616 and 869-469-1700. Those are the numbers to call to be a part of the show. Now, we're hopeful that you will call, but in the event that you don't, let's move on to another topic. And that topic has to do with, of course, the issue of whether or not St. Kitts and Nevis should maintain King Charles III as our head of state. There has been a considerable amount of debate surrounding this. I, for my part, feel that a lot of debate has had a lot of heat, but not enough light. That a lot of it has been passionate because it has been framed around slavery, around reparations, around the past, around the history, when I feel that what we really need to do is to make a determination as a country as to where we want to go. And that it is perhaps misguided of us to conflate the various issues. For example, if the monarch is no longer head of state, it does not affect our membership of the Commonwealth. Let me leave it there and go to the phones. Good evening, you're On the Mark.
Good evening, Mr. Premier.
Good evening to you.
How are you doing, sir?
I'm well, thank you.
Wonderful. I just wanted to bring three issues to the table tonight. Well, it's a matter, I guess it's a matter of some notices. First and foremost, I just want to use this medium to invite members of the public and, of course, a particular section of members of the public, a particular age group. The Empire Sports Club is hosting our famous 35 and over dance this coming Saturday night, the 20th of May, and it's happening at Lynn's Deli. It's dubbed Mood for the Mature, and so we are inviting persons, if you're 35 and over, to come to Lynn's Deli on Saturday night. It starts at 9 p.m. It goes until 3 a.m. And we'll have music by DJs Wolf and Woodis, as well as Garlic and the Upper Level Band. The admission for entrance to mere $25. Mere $25. And persons who would have come to our function in the past know the reputation that we have. We host the best ever 35 and over dance on the island of Nevis. So we are coming back this Saturday. We'll have lots to eat and drink. We'll have security. You can either purchase your tickets from members of the club, or you can pay at the gate. So if you pay at the gate, it's the same $25, but we are encouraging you to purchase your tickets. I have tickets and other club members have tickets. So please show up in your numbers this coming Saturday. And of course, we know that our club is a club that is a community-based club. We raise funds that is used in the community. In this instance, we are raising some funds. Our cricket team will be traveling to St. Martin next month. And so they're going to be doing a weekend tour in St. Martin. And our team has done very well for the past year, won a number of tournaments. And so we would have started with our fundraising this past Sunday, Mother's Day at the BOJN grounds with 2 cricket matches. We had the Masters versus the Young Guns. In the first game, the Masters would have won that encounter. And then in the second game, we had Empire coming up against Highlights, and Highlights would have won that encounter. And so we had a good showing there at BOJN on Sunday. And so our next fundraiser is on Saturday night at Lynn's Deli, $25, 35 and over dance, Mood for the Mature. The second thing I wanted to highlight tonight, on the 27th of this month, which is Saturday, the final Saturday in the month, I will be having a white goods cleanup in the St. George constituency. And so persons, if you have white goods, you can start getting them together. We did have one last year that went exceptionally well, and so I've decided to have another one this year in case anybody have any white goods and they would like to get rid of them have already contacted the solid waste, and so that will be done on Saturday, the final Saturday in this month, which is the 27th of May. And the last thing I want to highlight tonight is something that will be happening at our church, the St. George's Anglican Church, on the final day of May, Wednesday the 31st. We are having an ordination service, and that we haven't had an ordination service at our church for the past 43 years. So it's a very historic occasion. The last ordination we had there was in 1980, when Father P. Alistair Rollins was ordained priest there. Before that, we had one in 1975, when Father Masty Nisbet was ordained priest. And normally, it's a very rare occasion that we have an ordination on the island of Nevis. Of course, we know that Antigua is practically the headquarters where the bishop resides. Of course, we know the bishop is now in Vision, Bishop Ernest Fleming, and so some of the ordinations take place there, and some of the ordinations take place in the island where the parish priest is from. We are very fortunate because our parish, our reverend, our deacon, who we have right now, is from Anguilla. He would have joined us in September last year, and so he will be ordained to a full priest on May the 31st at the St. George's Anglican Church at 6 p.m. I want to make a special plug here for persons to come and fill the church. I want all Anglicans on the island to come out. I want persons from the other denominations to come out to show our support to Reverend Gomes. Reverend Gomes is a young, vibrant, very friendly, very energetic minister who came to us from Anguilla. He has made a lot of changes in the church. He has done a lot of work in the church. He has been working to ensure that more people come back to church, persons who haven't been to church for a very long time, persons who left the church many years ago are back. He's doing a lot of work in trying to get the young people involved, the older people involved, the middle-aged, and he has done some extensive work since he came to us in September, and we want to show him our support. We are very fortunate because, as I said, he's from Anguilla, but the ordination will take place on Nevis, not in Anguilla, and not in Antigua. So we feel very fortunate as Anglicans. We feel very fortunate from the St. George's Anglican Church that we will have a historic ceremony, an ordination. And, you know, we hardly have even ordination for the other denominations on Nevis. So that is why I'm asking the other denominations as well to come and experience what an ordination is like. Of course, when the bishop was installed, Premier, remember we went up to Antigua, a very historic ceremony.
Yes.
And so this will be something very historic as well. And so we're asking persons to come out. I am giving early notice. You'll be hearing much more about the ordination, but I decided to call in tonight to give 2 weeks notice to persons who would like to come. It's going to begin at 6 o'clock. Those of you who are working, you have to make sure you come home early from work. We want to start promptly at 6, and we want to have a packed church to support our very vibrant and active Reverend Crispin Gomes.
Okay.
So that is what I wanted to impart tonight. Thank you very much, Mr. Premier, for accommodating me.
All right. Well, thank you very much for calling in and for sharing these very important updates with us. You know, you are an interesting gentleman because you went from dance to church.
To ordination.
Yes. So you know, I like you start with the dancing and then you end up in church. So that's a good thing. But I think all very important information. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Have a good night.
Okay. Thank you. That was the Deputy Premier, the Honourable Eric Evelyn, and calling in, as we know, a man who's embedded in his community. And I thank him very much for his call and for the important information, particularly about the ordination, which, as he said, it's a rare occurrence, and so I too encourage Anglicans and others who are interested to go out and to experience. These are important pieces of our history, and it's good to be there. When I was at Westminster Abbey for the coronation, I thought to myself that the value in being there is really to feel that one is a part of history, and that to me is also very important. I was, before the Deputy Premier call, I was speaking about this issue of the monarchy, and please Feel free, the lines are open, so you can call at any time. But I think that it's a mistake for us to get sucked into that vortex of a conversation about the monarchy where we conflate the issue of the monarchy with the issue of reparations or the issue of our dark past of slavery. I say that because I feel that as a nation, which this year celebrates 40 years of nationhood, that it is for us to determine how we wish to fashion our country and how we wish to move forward. And if it is our collective desire to move forward and to cut all ties with the United Kingdom and to remove one figurehead, a Governor General, as a representative of His Majesty the King, with another figurehead, somebody who's local, a president, then that is a matter for us. But for my part, I think that the focus that we ought to have really should be centered around the critical issue of reparations for slavery and the critical issue of how we refashion the world's institutions to ensure that small countries such as ours get a fair shake. Now, part of the problem with the debate about reparations is that nobody has yet been able to define what reparations means or what it looks like. What should reparations represent? Are people saying that every person in St. Kitts and Nevis should get some money? Is that what it's going to look like? Are some saying that an apology from His Majesty the King and the British government and the like, is that what it looks like? I would feel that reparations should revolve around a conversation about creating opportunities for our people. Revolve around a conversation which speaks to create very real developmental pathways for the peoples of these former colonies and the exploited peoples. When I sat in the church at Westminster Abbey and I looked at the church itself, it's a marvel to behold. When you look up in the roof and you see the intricacies of the construction, when you look at the windows and the walls and you imagine for a moment the cost of erecting a structure such as this in the heart of London, and then you pause and you reflect that the money to do so much for all these buildings and statues and edifices that attract millions the world over to come and see the great city of London, that so much of that was funded by the rape and pillage of these former colonies. Here in the Caribbean, in Asia, in Africa, and that the wealth extracted from these countries is the wealth that was used to build the United Kingdom, to build Europe, to build so many countries across the globe. And so the question of reparations is, I think, a live and legitimate question. And it ought not to be devalued because it is conflated with the separate and wholly distinct, and in my view, wholly minor issue, I'm trying to find the right word, of whether we have a figurehead king or a figurehead president as head of state. I think our energy should be focused in the right direction. And for me, it is not to engage in hysterical debates about king as head of state or president as head of state. Because, truth be told, a lot of this debate is farcical in nature. I commented to someone by way of, in a jocular way, that Barbados moved from the Queen or the monarch as head of state to a republic, they say, where the president, a local president, is head of state. And all Barbados did was the lady who was there as Governor General, Sandra Husbands, is now the same lady who was there as president. But guess what the lady's title is? Her title is Dame Sandra Husbands. So she was Dame Sandra Husbands when she was Governor General, and now that she is president of the Republic, which has removed the monarch as head of state, she is still Dame Sandra Husbands. So I say that because she was a dame under the monarchy, she's now a dame under the Republican system. She still carries that colonial and monarchical title of dame. And so my question would be to the people of Barbados, what has changed for the man on the bus to Pine Garden? What has changed for the man in the taxi going to St. Lucie? And that's why I'm saying that I for my part feel that we should be engaged in a debate about issues that really impact our people, not just highly theoretical conversations that people have as they sit and have a drink of brandy, as they sit by the fireside chat. No, things that have real value to our people. And that's why I think that our energies are better focused on talking about the very real issue of reparations for our people. Let's go to the phones. Good evening, you're on the mark.
Let's go to the phone.
Good night. Good night, Mr. Brantley.
Good evening.
Good night, Mr. Brantley.
Good evening to you.
Yeah, I want to ask you a couple of questions. Under which monarch the Church of England was set up?
I'm sorry?
I'm asking you under which one the monarch in England, the Church of England was set up.
I want to guess that it was King Henry, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'll ask you that one. That's one question.
That's correct?
Well, yes.
Okay.
But I want to ask, when was Westminster Abbey was set up?
I don't know. Can't answer you there.
You see, you said something about the work of the slave trade that built up the structure.
No, I said wealth from the colonies, I said.
Yeah, well, I said the work.
Yeah, but you said from the slave trade.
Well, the slave trade was part of the development of the colonies.
Yes, but
we claim that a lot of wealth went to Britain.
Yeah, but what I'm trying... All I'm saying, wait, caller, because I think we need to be correct. All I'm saying is that my statement was the wealth from the colonies, meaning that slave trade, of course, provided considerable wealth, but that was not the only source. You had materials, you had gold, you had diamonds. Even while we were in England, the South Africans were making noise about a diamond in the crown and saying that that diamond should be returned to South Africa. So a lot of wealth was extracted from these countries.
But it's still they're calling him. When was Henry the Eighth? What time during what period he was on the
I don't know, Carl. I'm not a history buff when it comes to English kings and queens. So I don't know. If you're going to make a point, make the point, because I can't answer your question.
Just ask it. Maybe somebody else to answer for at another time.
Okay.
But before he was married before. But I said that to say when these people, when Sir Thomas Warner came here, he came here in 1623. I just saying these things, and maybe you go answer another time. That's the night. Or somebody else to give the answer. Have a good night.
But what's the point you're making, caller? I still don't get the point.
Well, I believe some things you're saying sound conflicting to me.
Some things sound conflicting.
Yeah.
So you don't agree that England and Europe was developed from wealth from the colonies?
Well, you were talking about Westminster Abbey.
No, I said while I sat at Westminster Abbey, I reflected.
So you were talking about the picturesque situation there and all of that.
Yes, and I said...
But that is the reason why I called.
Yes, but Carl, I'm saying you can't view that comment in isolation. I said I reflected as I sat there that the ornate design and all you saw there and the wealth that you see all around London and all around Europe is money that came from these colonies. I'm asking you if you're disputing that.
Okay, Mr. Brantley, let me say one more.
Yes.
I don't think time will allow. But prior to Henry VIII, Britain was much of a Catholic country, prior to Henry VIII. And one last thing I'm going to say, different from this. You ever had this thought about the way you all construct homes in Nevis? And I've been saying it about incentives. Small island state, spreading out buildings, and then one run out the land, and you got the area for go upstairs like this. You're supposed to be familiar with what happening with how they build the houses. You need your power drive and build house building. And government should be selling land to poor people.
It shouldn't be selling land?
To poor people. Poor people.
It should not be.
Yes, should not.
So what do you should do with it? Give it to them?
Housing program, build houses and sell the houses to the people. Not land. Poor people shouldn't get a land to buy. Build houses and sell them. I want you to think about it. You don't have to answer me now.
Okay.
I will go back and call back on the same history next week if I remember on this time life funding.
Okay.
I will go back, Mr. Brantley.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I mean, your last point is an interesting one, that government should not sell land; they should build houses and sell the houses. Of course, Carl, as you would know, a lot of people buy a piece of land because it's cheaper, and then over time, as they've paid for that land, they now have an asset that they can then mortgage to build a house. So it's an incremental process. So often if the government sells the land, it gives people a piece of the rock, so to speak, that appreciates in value over time and that they can then leverage to build a house. If a piece of land says 30,000 EC dollars, I'm just drawing a reference. If the government were to make that available to somebody, then that person may be able to manage that. If the government were to put a house on it now, with the house, that same property now becomes $150,000 or $200,000. It puts it further out of the reach. So it's an interesting point you've raised, but I think it's something that I would really like to engage a bit more to see how you think that could be financed and how we think it can be done. Let me go back to the phones. Good evening, you're on the mark.
Good evening, Mr. Brantley.
Good evening to you.
Okay, how are you doing?
I'm well, thank you.
Okay, very well. My concern has to do with the Integrity Commission in Nevis.
Yes.
And it has to do with the person appointed by Mr. Parry when he was there in the Parliament, Mr. Alfred Tyrrell.
Yes.
And he was appointed by Mr. Parry, apparently, even though Mr. Parry was not the leader of the opposition.
Yes.
He was only the sole elected representative in the opposition.
Yes.
But you said that you thought that there was you thought that you would make a compromise, compromise could be made. So apparently that compromise was made. No, the question I have for you, Mr. Brantley, can it be deduced that the present Integrity Commission is not constitutionally sound, as Mr. Tyrrell could not have been correctly appointed, as Mr. Parry was not the leader of the opposition, but only an elected member who was sitting on the opposition bench?
Well, I think yes, that argument can be made. Absolutely. But
no constitutional authority to appoint Mr. Tyrrell.
Well,
and finally,
yeah, you don't want me to answer the question.
Sorry,
you don't want me to answer the question.
I'm running out of credit. Can I just finish this one, please?
Okay.
And then I'll listen off here.
All right.
Okay, the tenure of the commission expires in a few weeks, as you said. And you questioned as to who is going to give the advice
for the member of the commission to be put there by the opposition, whether Cleone is going to say who she's going to put, or whether Janice is going to say who she's going to put there. I believe that, Mr. Brantley, you asked this question knowing fully well that neither Janice nor Cleone has the authority to put anybody on the Integrity Commission, as neither of them is the opposition leader. So can you shed some light on this source, please? And I would appreciate a listen off here.
All right.
Thank you for taking my question.
But caller, I think your question suggests to me that you already know the answer. Because, as you pointed out, Mr. Parry was not leader of the opposition, but Mr. Parry was allowed to name somebody to the Integrity Commission because he was the only representative of the opposition. And while the legislation speaks to the leader of the opposition, he, as the sole representative of the opposition, was afforded that courtesy. So you ask the question whether or not it could be challenged. I think yes, it can be challenged, but any challenge, I believe the response to the court would be that this important commission had to be constituted, and given the circumstances, this is the way it was constituted. In any event, the other two members are quite properly, lawfully there on the commission. So if there was even any question about Mr. Tyrrell and the propriety of Mr. Tyrrell being there because Mr. Parry didn't have the lawful authority to appoint him, it does not invalidate the appointment of the other two. I will go further, call and say, what happens if in an election one party wins all 5 seats, which is a possibility? Does it mean that we disband and we can't appoint the commission? Obviously not. It would simply mean that in those circumstances the commission will be a 2-person commission. I don't see any other way to get around that. So, going out to your second question about me posing the question because I know neither of them can. The truth is, it is my view that if the two of them were to agree and indicate that they agree, then we could do the same thing that we did when Mr. Parry appointed. We could say, well, this is the choice of the opposition, even though none of them is formally the leader of the opposition because neither of them is prepared to support the other for that role. So I think sometimes we have to look past the strict language, if you will, and look at what it is we're trying to achieve, which is to have an integrity commission that is functional, an integrity commission that drives forward the process of open, transparent government that all of us say we want, but that my government has been in the first to implement. So that is really what we're trying to do. And as I said, I believe from your second question, from the first question, I'm sorry, that you well understood the answer for the second question because you yourself put it quite nicely, that we allowed the sole member of the opposition to appoint. In this case, there are 2 members of the opposition. And had they done what they were supposed to do, we would have had a leader of the opposition and I would not even be having this discussion. Because they failed to do what they're supposed to do. We now have this quagmire. And the question is, how do we get around it? So the Integrity Commission will be reappointed, and there will be somebody there lawfully appointed as the chair, and there will be somebody there lawfully appointed on the advice of the Premier. The question now is, how do we get the 3rd member appointed? How is that to be done? And I raise that difficulty to point out what happens when people take public life for joke and don't do what they're supposed to do. When they create chaos and confusion and all about personal agenda and aggrandizement, and it has now an implication for the good governance agenda of the island. The good governance agenda is not my agenda. It is the agenda for the island and the people of Nevis. People said they wanted greater transparency. That is our responsibility to provide it. And that is, caller, why I raise it as one of the consequences of this conundrum that the NRP has created by the infighting, the inability to manage the seats that the people have given to them, and the fighting that has now erupted to the point where 1 member has been expelled. I've never heard that happening yet. 1 member has been expelled from the party. And so now, the Honorable Dr. Janice Daniel Hodge stands alone, and the Honorable Cleon Stapleton Simmons stands alone. Both are in opposition. And so the issue that I raised was about the office of the opposition, meaning the physical office, but that question now extends to other critical appointments that the leader of the opposition is important for. So how are we to function? If the Constitution requires consultation with the leader of the opposition, how is that to happen? These are very important points, because the framers of the Constitution could never have imagined that the NRP would behave in this way, or that any party would behave in this way. That is why they created a framework. They created some parameters within which they expect people, once elected, are going to behave. This has not happened. And instead we've had bloodletting and confusion and chaos. And so, caller, I hope I've been able to address your concern. I think you raised some very interesting points. But the root of this confusion, the source of this conundrum, is not the government. It is the dysfunction of the NRP that has brought us to this stage. And so we will just have to see what the days and weeks and months ahead present, and what happens in terms of how we go about managing the island and dealing with these important legal and constitutional questions, when those people in whom the people of St. James and the people of St. Thomas's repose trust and confidence refuse to do what is necessary in relation to managing, in relation to coming together, putting aside their differences, and ensuring that constitutional rectitude is respected at all times. And so that is where we are. The Honorable Cleon Stapleton Simmons has every right to stand where she's standing, because the people have elected her. And the Honorable Janice Daniel Hodge equally has every right. The difference was that Dr. Janice Daniel Hodge is the leader of the party. And I feel, as leader of the party, you have an added responsibility. You must not only be leader in name, you must also be leader in action. And leader means that you must be able to solve problems. That's why people have leaders. If you and I and Tommy Toto are in a group and none of us could solve a problem, none of us, which of us is fit to lead? Issues, thorny issues arise all the time. You think I'm sitting here tonight as a leader of CCM, I have not had to grapple with issues? I had to grapple with some serious issues. Serious issues. I mean, I'm not going to get into that, because CCM business is for CCM. But we've had issues, but it's a question of how we manage them. That is what is important. Not to be out here in the public airways lambasting each other and carrying on at a rate with each other. That is not the way to go. So, caller, that is my 2 cents on the matter. And I hope that I have been able to, at least if not answer the question, generate some discussion on it, because I think these are important questions for us to contend. Ladies and gentlemen, it means when you hear this band that it is 10 o'clock. Not yet 10 o'clock by my watch, but nearly 10 o'clock, I assume. So we're going to play ourselves out to 10. That's the end of our show. I just want to say thank you to all of those who called, all of those who were part of the show this evening, all of those who listened. Some people were messaging me, so I know that even though they didn't call, they were listening. To all of our friends and family overseas and who are regular listeners to this show, it is really, really good to be back. And I thank you all for being, over the years, regular listeners to this show and making the show what it is, which I think is one of the best talk shows in the region. Thank you very much for that. Thank you again to Eric Evelyn and to Troy Libert for hosting in my absence. And I promise you that going forward I'm going to be here more, because my feet are now firmly on the rock again and I don't plan on moving anytime soon. So God willing, we'll be back next Wednesday and the Wednesday after that and the Wednesday after that. This show is rebroadcast right here on Von Radio tomorrow at 1 p.m. and we ask you to tune in. Some say it's so nice they listen twice. That's our show. Good night. God bless you and keep you.
The views and opinions expressed on the preceding program were solely those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Nevis Broadcasting Company Limited.